Okay, so yes, these are the garner limits. So we can use only 100 SOQL queries per transaction, and each SOQL query can handle 50,000 records. So the best practices we have already discussed. So garner limits 100 SOQL queries, and each SOQL query can handle 50,000 records at a time. So how we are running the SOQL queries? From the developer console query editor, that's one place. But this place, I would say it's for our internal purpose. Like if we want to see some data, then we will be using it. But usually in real-time scenario, we will be writing an SOQL query inside our Apex program. Okay. Yeah, we have discussed simple SOQL queries, and yeah, if it returns a single record, how we are handling. If it returns multiple records, how we will be handling using our collections. Okay. Limit clause to limit the number of rows to be displayed, all rows to display, even the deleted records as well. Order by to um, sort the order of the records that we are fetching using our SOQL query. Offset to set the starting point of the records. So I want to display only records. I'm getting 50 records and I want to display records from 10 to 20. You can use offset 10 and limit 10. Then it's going to pull out 10 to 20 records. For update, for locking the records, and where clause for putting some conditions on our SOQL query. Yeah, this all we have discussed in the previous class. So that's what I'm scrolling in. And in operator, we can use it for fetching elements from a list or a collection within our SOQL query. Like operator is used for fetching some kind of, this is used for performing some kind of pattern matching operations. Like I wanted to pull out the records whose name is starting with, let's say, Ram. So Ram percentile gives the number of characters. After Ram, there should be some characters, right? The percentile underscore gives only single character, percentile gives more than one character. So we can use like Ram means all the records which has which name in which the name starts as Ram and ends with many other characters. So Ram Kumar, Ramesh Kumar, Ramu. So all these kind of records will be returned. So like operator is used for that. Yeah, we discussed dynamic SOQL query and how we are going to execute dynamic SOQL query. So for executing the dynamic SOQL query, we will have to use the database method, that is database.query. So yes, we are going to discuss that as well now. So yes, this is all about static and dynamic SOQL queries. So let's move on to the next topic, that is DML statements. Okay. So DML is called, so what is DML? Data manipulation language. DML means we will be performing some kind of insert, update, delete, undelete, upsert, merge. These are the operations which we are performing on our database. So to perform those operations, we have to use the DML statements. Those are the statements: insert, it's a keyword. Yeah. For inserting the record, and update is for updating the record, right? So by using this feature, we can perform the DML operations on Salesforce object. We can perform on either one or more, right? Two ways of executing the DML operations. One is the DML statements. Apex provide a collection of DML statements can be used for DML operations on multiple records. So these are the DML statements which we can use in our programming directly. The keyword followed by the either it be a single record or multiple records or a list collection, anything it can be. So, right. So we can use these keywords, these 6 DML statements, and then we can perform the operations. That's one way. The other way is we can also perform the DML operations with the help of our database methods. So database is ready-made class provided by Apex, which is used to interact with the Salesforce object to perform the DML operations. So the database class we have, and in that we have the this DML operation performing static methods. Okay, so database dot insert, database dot update, right? So these are all the um, static methods which are already present in the database class, which we can use. But there arises some scenarios where we will be going ahead and using the database methods, but usually we go in the real time, most of the cases we go with the normal DML statements. So in the database, we have another method called query method, database dot query. So we are going to write our dynamic SOQL query with the help of database dot query method. Okay. So we discussed that. Right. Garner limits. So the SOQL queries, what's the Garner limit for SOQL query per transaction? Anyone? We have already just now discussed also. What is the number of SOQL queries we can execute per transaction? What is the Garner limit?
100.
Yes, 100 SOQL queries. Okay. So similarly, we have Garner limit for DML statements also. So we can use 150 DML statements per transaction within a transaction. So not more than 150 DML statements. And each DML statement can process 10,000 records at a time. Okay. So this is how we are going to do. And the best practices is we should not use the DML statements. Yeah, this is one interview question. Probably if you remember, someone has asked me on the Garner limits. Yeah, DML statements, we should not use them within the body of the for loop. Okay, so because that will, there are more chances of touching the Garner limits. That's where we are supposed to not use DML statements inside the body of the for loops. Okay. And while performing DML operations on the records, always use bulkification mechanism. Yeah, what is this bulkification? I'm going to explain in detail. Right, to answer what is Garner limits on the interview point of question, you will have to discuss clearly like the best practices and the Garner limits. The Garner limits are the limits which are given by Salesforce, which said these limits are set by the Salesforce, and this is because we are working on a multi-tenant architecture, and that's where we will have to minimize the system usage because we should not make the system get blocked for other organization users, right? So that's where the Salesforce has put in the Garner limits in place. So Garner limits for SOQL queries per transaction is 100 SOQL queries per transaction, and Garner limits for DML statements is 150 DML statements per transaction. And for SOQL queries, each SOQL query can process 50,000 records at a time, and each DML statement can process 10,000 records at a time. So these are the Garner limits for SOQL and DML statements. Yeah, hope I answered your question of Garner limits now. Right. So these six statements are the DML statements: insert, update, delete, undelete. We are going to discuss them in detail because these are going to be like base for our programming again. Okay. So insert statement, by using this statement, we can insert one or more records. We can, so the syntax is like insert. We already have used it in our program already. So while writing, so insert the record reference for inserting single record, insert the object reference for inserting multiple records, and database dot save result of database dot insert collection name comma boolean. This is database class method way of inserting the records. Okay. Write an Apex program to insert a lead record. So this is a very simple one. So I'm going to use it already available code, right? So I'll show you and explain you in detail what it is all about. So let's go to our developer console and let us write this simple class code. And we are going to perform all our DML operations with the help of our class called DML operations helper. So create a new class, Apex class, DML operations helper. So I'm using the same code. It's just a single record insertion code. Okay. Yeah. So public class DML operations helper, we are just inserting one single record. So we already did this operations previously also. So public static void insert lead record is a non-parameterized procedure I'm using. And here I'm creating a new lead record object. So in the lead record object, I'm passing all the values required, and what I'm doing is I'm just inserting. So this is how we use the DML statement. Okay. And we are just checking if lead record ID is created or not. If once we insert, a record ID gets created for it, and then it is displayed, right? So this one we have to execute. So how we are going to execute? Can anyone tell me? Do I have to create an object for this class to execute the procedure? Yes, no, maybe.
I don't think so, Deepak. Sorry, Dilip.
Okay, since
Cool.
this is a static method, we can directly access the method with the class name itself. Okay, class name dot the procedure name, and then we can execute it, right? So what we are doing, we are just inserting a record called Ravi Kumar. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute it. We didn't save it. That's the reason. See here, star map. Debug only, and this the record has been created, and this is the record ID. So if you want to see the record, let's go to our lead records. Yeah, Ravi Kumar, that is the one first one. Okay, you can see today's leads only Ravi Kumar. Yeah. So this is the one which we have created just now. So this is how we just simply can insert a single lead record into our object. Okay, so using making use of the DML statements, right? So the next scenario is the one which we are going to write it in detail. Okay, right. So next one is write an Apex program to insert 100 hiring manager records inside the object. So here, single record, we can do it simply with the help of insert lead record. Okay. So now I want to insert 100 hiring manager records inside my object. So let's go ahead and write that code. Before, let's check our org, like in the hiring manager object, how many records do we have? There are no records in our hiring manager object. Okay. So I just want to see what all the fields do we have. I guess we haven't created any fields for this hiring manager object, any custom fields, right? Hiring manager name is available. So yeah, these are the fields which we have. So let's go ahead and create, write a small program. So yes, we will be making use of the same class, and we are going to write another method. Mm, so our assignment is to write an Apex program to insert 100 hiring manager records inside the object. So here I'm going to explain the bulkification concept. Okay. So we can do it normally. We can also do it with the help of bulkification. What is the difference between those two? We are going to discuss in detail. Okay. And right. So let's take public. So this one for inserting the multiple records also, we will be writing a simple insert a method for it, right? Public static void insert bulk records, I would say. And here I'm not passing anything. And how we are going to write. So I have like 100 hiring manager records I need to insert. How do I need to do it? So I would take help of what? Iterative statement. So integer counter. So normal for loop, and I should be writing counter less than or equals to how much? 100 hiring manager comes, right? So I'm writing 100 and followed by counter plus plus. So I'm just incrementing it. And within for loop, I'm going to write a little code. So let me use the braces. Okay. Uh, okay. So here, what do we need to do? So we have to create an object for our hiring manager, right? So I'm copying the hiring manager API name uh, from the org. Okay. Hiring manager underscore underscore C. HR is equals to right the default constructor, and we have created an object for our hiring manager, right? So then what do we need to do? So we will have to give the values for the mandatory fields. So we will have to pass the values for our hiring manager dot name. I'm giving bulk records. So how bulk records plus so I want to give bulk record one, bulk record two, something like that. Okay. So for that, how do I need to do? Hiring manager dot name is equals to bulk record plus I'm using the counter value. And this is what I want my record name to be looking like this. Okay. So, right. And then the semicolon. So that means first record name will be bulk record one, counter is one, right? Bulk record one, space one. And the second one will be bulk record two. So similarly, it will go on till it is bulk record 100. So that is the name I'm passing as for the bulk record. Okay. And then what should I do? Okay. So we don't have multiple fields in our hiring manager object. So I think this much is enough, right? So next, what should I do here? I should insert those records, right? Right. So is this correct? Okay. So this is very simple way of writing, inserting bulk records. But here, do you see any problems in this particular code? So I was telling you the best practices and the governor limits, so many things, right? So do you see any problem here? Okay, let's go ahead and execute it. Mm, okay, let me save this code and let us execute. Insert bulk records, and this is what I just click on execute. right? And go to debug only. So there is no message, but the thing is we have inserted the bulk records. Okay. So let's go ahead and see whether those records got, we didn't use any debug message, right? So that's what it's not displaying anything. But let's go ahead and see our org. So if you see here, so there are, okay, the bulk records are created from 1 to 100. You can see it, right? So this is how we can insert bulk records, but we have made a small mistake here. What it is, anyone can understand in our code? So yeah, go to the log and see here in the log, we can see here how many SOQL queries, 0, SOSL 0, DML statements, 100 out of 150, right? So what we are doing, we are executing our DML statements almost the number of times the for loop is getting iterated, right? So that's where we are doing a mistake. But since it's just 100 records, it's not going to throw any error because we have 150 DML statements. But if we have, the loop needs to go till 200. So let's go ahead and do that. So let us write 200 here, and it is going to throw an exception for us. Okay.
You did not save it.
Hmm? Save.
You did not save the code.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's execute. And it is throwing an exception. Yes. So this is the exception which is caused too many DML statements 151. So for SOQL, we have too many SOQL queries 101, means 100 limit. Here 150 limit, too many DML statements 151. That's the exception given by the system. Okay. So this is where we will have to use the bulkification concept. So yeah. Um, so Samant, as you are here, I hope I cleared your garner limits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the next one is you asked about where we are in real time, where we are using the collections, right? So that is going to be the next one here.
Okay.
Okay. So here we are writing our code. We are writing the DML statement within the for loop, which is not a best practice. Okay. So what do we need to do? We have to write it outside the for loop. So for doing that, how do we need to do? So let me explain a simple analogy. I know it's layman's analogy, but yes, for you to understand it clearly, I feel it's needed. So if you go to a supermarket, so you will have, suppose you have to buy some apples, some rice, and some oil, something like that. So you go to usual scenario, what it is. So is it like you go to the apples rack place and you bring the apples and you go to the counter again, bill it and come out and then go in again, then bring the rice and then do the billing and then come out and then go to the other rack? It's not the scenario, right? So you will just carry your cart or basket based on your requirement. You will go because standing in the queue is like it's a pain. You know, you can get one item at a time. It's easy, but standing in the queue, there is a big queue at the counter, right? So standing in the queue is a big time waste for you, right? So that case, what you're doing, you are going carrying a basket or carrying a cart with you, and then you are going to each place for all the products which you require. You will put them in your cart, and one single time you come to the counter and then bill everything at a time, right? And then you come out, right? So this is how we need to do. So here also what we are doing, we are inserting our record one by one. So we are making the database busy, and also we are losing our DML statements. So we are inserting one record one time, second iteration another record one time, third record another time. So we are doing that. So that's the blunder mistake here. I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but it's not a best practice of programming. Okay, so to avoid that, so we carry in our daily scenario, we carry our cart and do everything at a time, and then one time only we do the billing and come out of it, right? So similarly, we will also have to do a bulkification here, where we we catch all the records into some basket and then put them directly one time into our database. So here our collections act as a basket. So basket in the sense, it's again, our collections are used for holding group of records, group of elements, right? So yes, so we will be making use of collections to catch all the items together, and at a time, out of the for loop, we will be placing those particular collection into our database, making use of a single DML string. So how we are going to do? So this is a sample code, but we are touching the Ghana limit. So let's go ahead and do improvise this particular code. That means let's go ahead and bulkify our code. Okay, so how we are going to do? So what I want to do is I wanted to catch this particular hiring manager records into a single single collection. Okay, so let me create a out of my for loop, let me create a collection of list, so of my hiring manager object. Okay, and I'm just using LST. You can use any name here. New list of hiring manager records, and right. So this is how you define your list of hiring manager record type, and then you will be using your for loop. Okay, right. So inside the for loop, what I'm doing is I'm creating hiring manager object, yes, and in that I'm adding my records. So I want to remove these DML statements here. I don't want to insert within the body of the for loop. Okay, and okay, so then what should I do now? So I wanted to add all these records into my collection. Okay, so how do I add records into the collection? We have a method called add. Okay, so how do I add one by one record into my collection? Add method of list collection, right? So that is present with me. So how do I need to do? Add dot. Now what? The HR record. So did you understand what I'm doing here? So this is my list collection I just created. And into that list collection, I'm processing all the records with the record names. I'm giving new value record name, creating a new record, giving value new record name, and I am putting them in my list collection of type hiring manager. Okay. So then out of the for loop, what I'm doing is, so I'm collecting here. If you see, my list acts as a basket. So it's collecting all the records one by one, right? So it's holding all the 200 records now. And I need to then insert my list collection into the database at a time. So how do I need to do? So I will check whether this list is empty or not. So that's the basic condition we used to check, because again, before performing any DML operations, make sure you are doing performing something on that particular operation. Otherwise, the DML statements are costly. Costly when I say we can use only 150 per transaction, right? So that's where. So I'm saying lst dot is empty. So if it is not true, then I will be inserting these particular records in my list. Okay. So this is an isempty method. It's also part of our list collection. Okay. So what I'm doing, if this is true, then I will be inserting my list collection. For loop out of it, if, and then this, right? This error should disappear. Yeah. Okay. So did you understand something here? Any queries? So if you see here, what we did, the modification, we have pulled out our DML statement out of our loop, and we created a list collection for us, which is a basket holder for us. And this is going to hold all our records one by one, which we are creating in every iteration. So it's going to add one by one a record to our list collection. And once the for loop is completed, we have 200 records got added to our list collection. And this list collection, I'm checking whether it's empty. It's definitely not empty. And then I'm inserting this particular list collection to the database. So I'm performing only one DML statement. So this is called bulkification. So our collections plays a major role in performing the bulkification for our code. So that's where we can avoid the governor limits, avoid touching the governor limits, and also, you know, optimize our code to the less number of characters. Okay. So any questions here? So let's save it first and then execute. Saved, insert bulk records, and then, yeah, let me put a simple DML debug statement. Inserted. So for every record, I'm putting some message. So that means this debug statement should also be displayed. This is for our use, but again, it's not going to touch any corner limits or nothing. Okay. What's the error? Yeah, it's gone now. Let me save. Okay, so let us go ahead and execute it. Debug only. See, all our records are executed. So this is going to print 200 times. Okay. And if you see the log file completely and you go to the down and you see here how many DML statements are executed? Only one DML statement. So previously we were doing 100 DML statements once, we were doing 200 DML statements, and in the 200 DML statement, it gave us exception. So here we are doing only making use of only one single DML statement. That's where the combination of our collections and the SOQL queries and the iterative statements together help us to not touch the corner limits and also to perform bulkification operations and also to optimize the code. So this is how we will have to write a program. And if you see here, there are number of DML rows. We worked only 200 operations, right? So there are 10,000 records which we can deal. We worked on 200 of it. So it's displayed here if you see, right? So this is how we will have to bulkify our code based on the requirement. Right? So in real-time scenario, where we are using our collections, yes, we will have to use our collections in this manner. Okay. So collections acts as a placeholder or the basket kind of thing where they are going to hold bulk records at a time, and then we will be performing the DML operations on those bulk records at a time out of the looping statements or iterative statements. Okay. So Samant, did you understand here? I'm
Yes,
focusing on you because you raised some doubts. Yeah.
yes, yes, it's clear. But I have two questions here. One, we
Yeah,
already have,
yeah, that is what I was expecting. Go ahead.
like 100 records on the system, right?
Huh?
So we are creating again from record 1 to 200. So what about those 100 records already created?
Let's go. Let's go and see it.
Okay.
Let's refresh. So total how many records? 50 plus items. Okay.
Duplicate accounts? No?
Sorry?
Are there
200.
any duplicate accounts? Sorry, duplicate records.
There are duplicates. We did it 3-4 times, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. You see, all 97 three times, 98 three times, right?
Yes.
So here it is allowing duplicates just because we don't have any unique field which we are
Hmm.
inserting again. It's just the name field we have given. Okay. So that's where we did multiple duplicates here. So yes, we will be performing the undelete operation also now. Update
Okay.
operation, delete. So yeah, we will be using that. Okay. So yes, we created 3 times. Okay.
Yeah.
One time we created 1 to 100, and the next 2 times we created 1 to 200, right?
Hmm.
So that's where all these records are there. Yes. What is the next doubt?
The second question is each record is unique, right? For example, one record is like Ramesh, the second record is Suresh, and third record is Umesh, something like that. How in that scenario, how we gonna insert those kind of records like
Yes, yes.
in real time?
See, this bulkification is used. I mean, if we need to use something like instead of simply adding one by one record,
Hmm.
I know there are few fields which are common for every record. Okay. So those fields I will catch and I will insert the records with the help of my looping statement. Then next, what I do is I go ahead and update the records for the fields which are different. So this
Hmm.
scenario usually very rare. So similarly, where we are using our uh, data loader tool, right? So similarly, so
Mm-hmm.
the same way we can also perform here, update, insert. So inserting bulk records usually is not used most of the times, but very rare. But this scenario, we will have to deal it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So you can insert and then make use of the data loader tool and then update the records also. So that
Got
way
it.
also you can do combination.
Got it.
So all the unique fields we do it. So usually bulk fields insert is not uh, a good one, but yes, there comes a scenario business requirement where we have most of the fields same with the same field value for multiple fields. So in that case, probably inserting bulk records will be a better option.
Okay.
Yeah. Any others? Any questions? Others? So I am understanding. I mean, if you keep silent, I understand that you understand this everything. All good, right? Yeah, Charan, Srikant, Ramiza, Deepika. Any questions here?
All good.
All good. Yeah. So this is where if you raise any questions, probably not now, or if it is possible, I can answer now. But if not, like someone was asked this like 10 days ago, I guess. But when the topic came, we will have to answer. So that's where we can clearly understand the things. So governor limits, just be prepared how to answer that question. And best practices of Apex programming, just be prepared to answer that question. So not to use DML statements within for loops and follow bulkification. And then the next one is different. So this way we can write our code for bulkification. Let me copy paste this. So insert 100 hiring manager records. So till now we have zero hiring manager records. We inserted almost 300, 350, 300, 400 records now. Right? Yeah, we have undelete operation. So we will be performing the undelete operation on the bulk records also. Right? So the next one is delete statement. So by using this statement, we can remove either one or more records on Salesforce. So this operation is also similar to our insert. So we can either perform on a single record, we can delete multiple records at a time, and also we can use the database class to delete the records. Okay. So yes. Write an Apex program to delete all the exist hiring manager record whose name is starting with specified characters, right? So let's go ahead and write a small program now. So this is for we'll be making use of delete DML statement. Okay. Right. So here, let me close it. And this is saved, right? Okay. So let's go ahead and write for deleting the records. So what will be the method name? Delete bulk records. Delete whatever. Delete bulk records. And so this particular syntax or the code which we are writing, we can write it in two different ways. Okay. So here, our requirement is we are passing some kind of string on our at the runtime. Okay. So it should not be void. Okay, it can be void, but the thing is we are doing the parameters also. String. So this is the string I'm passing at the runtime, and this string I'm going to mark the records, delete the records based on the starting characters which are passed. Okay. So parameterized procedure. Actually, it's not returning anything. It's doing the operation, performing the operation. Okay. So how we are going to do it? We can do it in two different ways. I'll show you how to do it. So first thing, I will test whether that starting characters is um, not a null or not blank. So that is needed because we are not going to process the null values or okay, because we don't want to waste our um, code. Okay. So that's where we always have to write this kind of conditions in the beginning, not equals to null and starting characters not equals to, I will use blank also. So I'm handling both the scenarios. Okay. So you have to write this statement, conditional statement this way for most of the scenarios. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I have to add some characters to the end of this particular starting characters. How do I need to do? Starting characters plus is equals to. So when we are dealing with the like operator, what are the wildcards we have used? One is underscore, one is percentile. So underscore is for single character and percentile is for more than one character, right? So I am adding some more characters at the end of my uh, starting characters. Okay. So then what I'm doing, I have to create a list of my hiring manager records. So here I will use LD, delete operation. So here what I'm doing is I'm going to write a static SOQL query. The reason being I will have to perform catch the records which are by uh, putting some criteria on the records which I fetch, right? So I'm going to write a static SOQL query for that. So how do I need to do it? So static means enclosed within the square brackets, write down the query, select, let's pull some important details, ID, name. So we don't have more fields in our hiring manager actually. Only name is available. ID by default, it will be there. So you can pull out whatever the fields which you want, but whatever is required, mentioning the conditions, you have to do it. Okay. From my hiring manager. Okay. Right. Now we have to write our condition. So condition, can anyone tell me using the clauses? Do. So my record name should start with uh, given starting characters. So what should I write here? Anyone? Which clause I need to use?
Like,
Okay. No, before, yeah, like we will have to use, but before that, to specify the condition,
where?
yeah, where, okay, where, what is that we are writing the condition on? What is the field?
Where name is like,
Name, correct? Name and like, okay. So like specifies something like it may be starting with this character, something like that. Okay. So name like, what should I write next? Starting characters. Okay. Yeah, this much only because we already have added some characters at the end, right? Okay. So this is our query. So name, where name like with which is starting with like our starting characters. And for the starting characters, we have added a couple of characters at the end. So it can be starting, it should be starting characters should be there as well as any characters followed by starting characters. So that's our condition. So we have fetched those records. So now what should I do? Delete those records, right? Delete. Right. Correct. So here what we are doing, we are just checking whether the starting characters are not null and not empty. And for starting characters, we are adding multiple characters at the end. Okay. And what we are doing is we are fetching the hiring manager records into a list with the help of our static SOQL query, where we are giving the condition name like with the starting characters. Okay. So yes, and then we are deleting those records, right? So this is how we can do. So let's go ahead and do it. And there are no problems here. So let's save it. And while running this particular um, method procedure, how do we need to run? Can anyone see? Delete bulk records. So we have to pass the starting characters. Okay. So how do we pass the starting characters? So I'm just checking the records. So I will use bulk record space one. So that 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, and then, okay, so many records, it will be deleted, right? So we will take 1, 2, right? Bulk record 1, 2. That means whatever the record name starts with 1, 2, that means one is 12, 120, 121, So all those records, one till 129, all those records will be deleted, right? Hope you understood this. Let's go ahead and execute, but yeah, let's go ahead and execute. So we didn't put any debug statements. It's not going to show anything, but yes, it is going to perform the operation. Let's go ahead and check. So I didn't refresh it. So now we have 12, 3 records and 120, 120, all those records, right? So 120 series will be deleted all, right? So let's take 400 items now. Let's refresh. So if you see, there is no 12, and after 110, there is 113. So that 1-2 series has been deleted completely. Okay. So yes, so our code works, but this is like not the best way of writing the code, because we are using, this is one way. We are complicating it with so much of statement, but yes, we can also do other way of writing the code. I will show you, which is very simple. So I'm commenting this particular lines of code. So what I can do is I can simply write my delete statement followed by my static SOQL query. Select from hiring manager. Yeah. Here we should give the condition where name like starting characters and also plus my percentile, right? So we can write this statement also instead of this much of code. And both are doing the same operation. Okay. Yeah, we can write this way also. So I will specify now the starting characters. I'll specify 1, 3. Okay. Let's execute this, and 1, 3 series saved and then execute. So 1, 3 series should go away now. So we didn't write any debug statements. It's not going to show anything, but let's go ahead and see. So now 1, 3 series is available. Let's refresh. Now if you see, 1, 3 series will be gone. 1, 1 followed by 1, 4. 1, 2 and 1, 3 are gone, right? So this is how we can do, right? Delete statement, which we can use the DML operation delete statement. So here we are using this statement. So in the real time scenario, most of the cases will be using this. There will be a very less number of cases we use this and this also, but most of the cases we can use this way. So this is how we can do perform insert operation, DML operation, and delete DML operation on our database. Okay. So we can perform the DML operations this way, right? So yeah, we will catch up soon in an hour again, and we will continue with the undelete statement and other DML statements. Okay. Yeah, that's it for now. Catch you again